Hey, District 9. Hello, hello, hello. And hello to everyone else that is watching on tonight. Come on in the room. We are live on my Facebook page as well as my YouTube page for the Board of Education. And today we have an exciting guest. We have one of our newest members, Dr. Phelton Moss, who will be joining us. I'll bring him up in a second, but I did want to just take time for you all to be able to come on in and talk about what we're going to talk about today. Today, we are going to continue our discussion on Educate, Advocate, Act Together, but now from Dr. Moss's perspective, who serves as our Policy and Governance Chair. And I think it was important to talk about what his strategy is, what his vision is for overall policy and governance, how we're engaging this year, what advocacy looks like, and any questions you all might have around that. Our nation is in a crazy state right now. Our deficit, it feels like it's mounting in Maryland, and it definitely trickles down into Prince George's County. So there's a number of things that's even happening next week for our advocacy. Then I want to take you through the latest newsletter. Hopefully you're already getting that. And we'll talk through some kudos for some of our scholars, which I'm really excited about as well. All right, so without any further ado, let me bring them up. Hey, Dr. Phelton, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? It's good to be here.
Oh, thank you for waking up at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp to be here. I know it's not always easy on a Saturday morning, so we appreciate you being here. And then for anyone who didn't make it, if you're here live, you can go ahead and type into Facebook. You can type into YouTube. We'll answer your questions live. If we can't answer them, then don't worry. We'll get the answer and it'll show up inside of the District 9 newsletter next month. And if you wanted to join, you can always join in the future by sending tia2.johnson@pgcps.org, and you'll get the link to join us what we here now. So, Dr. Phelton, welcome to the Board of Education. And is it all that you dreamt that it would be?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit more than that. No, I think it's a different. It's having been an educator and now being on this side, the work looks vastly different, and so it's still a learning curve. Although I've been an educator and worked in these spaces for a little while.
Oh, excellent. Well, the good news is that you have been in education, and I think that we're doing some amazing work when it comes to policy and governance, continuing our efforts from last year into this year. And so I'm hoping you can talk to us a little bit about what your vision is. I also sit on the Policy and Governance Committee under your leadership. So talk to us about what that committee does, when it meets, how people can get involved, and your vision for it.
Yeah, I just want to personally thank you for your leadership on the committee. Your, experience has been pretty powerful to support us this legislative session as a committee. And everyone knows Board Member Walker's commitment to educating, advocating, and acting together. And so, to be honest with you, that is the work that we've continued. And so there hasn't been new work under my leadership in just this short time. It's been a continuation of the existing work that had happened. For folks that have not followed the board as much, you understand the board went on a journey during Board Member Walker's chairmanship, to be honest, to put together a policy platform to be able to take to Annapolis so folks were clear about what needed to be true for kids in Prince George's County Public Schools to have the best possible education. And so essentially what we've done during this legislative session is we've really put that legislative platform into action by spending a considerable amount of time engaging with our delegates. We've done some proactive work. We've also done some reactive work. And so part of our commitment moving forward is to not be so reactive and to work with our delegation members prior to. Some of that work happened last year when Board Member Walker and team actually brought our delegation together for a legislative day here in Prince George's County to really lay out that platform. And so I very much so see my work as chair of this committee is continuing to make the engine run as it relates to the commitments that the board made early on in its policy priorities. I do believe, as we think about the future a little bit more, what we're committed to doing is making sure our students are involved in this advocacy a bit. Board Member Boozer Struthers, who also is on the committee, who is also one of our veteran board members, had some ideas around that. That's going to happen this Wednesday. Board Member Walker and I'll be there with him as well. So, I mean, I think, the shorty is we've got to continue to educate, advocate, and act together. We used to laugh about that when I first got on the board. I'm like, what does this mean? Board Member Walker got this on everything. What does it mean? But it truly has become the work that we're actually doing. We find ourselves having to educate folks about the good work we're doing in the district, having to educate folks how bills would impact us, advocate for bills and ideas that are not yet put into policy yet, but that could be put into policy. And really being one board and one PGCPS, that's one of the things that I've been most proud of. So I hope I answered your question, but it's really to continue the work that you all already started, but to also think about how do we engage our parents and our students in advocacy in ways that haven't happened before.
Oh, no, thank you. No, you did. You really did answer that question. And I think by way of, let's say, policy and governance, there's kind of two buckets. And I wonder, do you see them like that? Guys, we haven't really had a chance to talk. This is like on the spot kitchen table discussion. This is how it happens on these Saturday mornings. In my mind, I see it as the advocacy we do externally. So with our partners externally, our delegates, our senators, council people, et cetera. And then there's the policy and governance work internal for us, right? And I was wondering what your thoughts were around that. I did get a couple of questions from some community members in advance who couldn't make it today. But one of them was, how are board members holding each other accountable through our own policies? And is there any work? And I think we can just kind of take that and kind of talk about it in general.
Yeah, I certainly think there are two buckets to our work. So we certainly have an outward responsibility. And what I mean by outward is not just to the public, but policy that is outside of PGCPS that would impact PGCPS. And we've spent a lot of time there over the last few months. But we do have an inward, right, policy responsibility in terms of how do we advance policies that impact our work as a board, impact students, impact families. So there are two buckets to the work. We do have a work plan that we follow that has been, the administration gets together and say, these are policies that need to be reviewed. And we review those monthly at our policy and governance committee meetings, in addition to talking about our legislative work in Annapolis. So I do think and to that question, I'll let you come in a little bit. The last few months, we, just transparently as a board, we have thought about holding ourselves accountable just in terms of our relationships and how we coordinate with one another. How do we make sure we're on the same page? That's been our start. I think that there are other ways. We're currently in the process of exploring policies that relate to how we use our budget and all of those things that are in the work, how we meet. Those are ways in which I think you'll see us holding one another more accountable. But just in this first few months, we've been learning to be accountable to one another and figuring out how to work together, not to try to do things behind one another, but to be forward about our work. I think that's where we've been right now. Board Member Walker, I don't know if you have, a different thought around that, but.
Yeah, no, just adding on, I think that, the question of accountability always comes up with board members. It's not anything new since you've been here. It's just in general, the governance piece. So how do we hold each other accountable to make sure that we're following our own policies, our own internal policies? And one of the things I think is important is as we on board or continue or do our continued work or get challenges on things, that we go back and we look at our policies. And I think for our policies, there is a list of the ones that we do need to take up and make sure we go over. And one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share the board docs. So District 9 and those who come here and who have watched, I've used board docs before, and I want you all to know that you can always go to go.boarddocs.com. I'm sure I have it on one of these banners that I can put up in a second. Let me just type it out so you can see it. I thought I had, well, yeah, I do. Okay, so here it is, go.boarddocs.com, and that will get you to our board docs. And what's important there is that you can go here and you can see the agendas for our meetings. You can see what we talk about. And this one here happens to be the Policy and Governance Committee of our last meeting. And I think when we talk about do we know our policies and accountability and making sure we understand those, we have right here our agenda. But what you see right here is first consideration, second consideration, and then third consideration. And sometimes that confuses folks. And over time, we've put in parentheses what it means because it can be a little confusing. So first consideration is when we have discussion about it. Okay, it's coming to the committee and we are chatting about it. So you can see on March the 11th, we talked about 4 items. We talked about the work plan review, incorporating a hybrid modality policy, e-rate management, community schools, and board member voucher reimbursement. Okay, then next it goes to, well, depending on how we vote in the discussion that we have, which everybody is invited to take a look at or even add public comment to it in that meeting, because you have the notice up front. And I've started trying to put that into my newsletters as well, to be able to talk to the community about what's coming up. Next is the second consideration, and that's when it's advanced for public comments to come into the board. I was going to say board office, the board meeting, and give some thoughts on that based on what you have even heard us talk about. Okay. Then finally is our third consideration, where it comes to the board for a vote. And that's really important, because when people talk about, and when we talk about accountability, it's not only accountability on our side, for sure, because we own that, we're elected officials, but it's also how do we get the input from our community members and our stakeholders, which are also important. Okay, so those, I wanted to make sure that we showed you guys that as well. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, and I think in terms of accountability, I really appreciate the question. It also made me think about when stakeholders share with us what they believe we have, or what is true, that we've not followed our own policy.
Yeah.
I've gotten a couple of those, and it, sent me to go on a journey, right?
Yeah.
To be able to study our policy and our work. I haven't shared this much, but I do think it's important at some point for us to have a work session where, because we have so many new board members, where we just talk through our general policies and like how we generally do business. I think our colleagues know for the most part. But there was a time where the board started, the board changed a lot of policies and revised a lot of them. And I think there's an opportunity for us to do that a good bit. I get pings all the time from folks saying, well, I don't think you all did that the right way, but actually, when we actually go back and review it, that policy was changed. And so I do think there's an opportunity both, internally as well as externally, for us to do a better job of showing how a policy changed. What that looks like right now, I'm not sure. I've asked Ravel about it. How do we be more public facing around when a policy change beyond that tracker? Because that tracker can be a bit overwhelming for folks. And I know board member Walker has shared it several times, but that tracker does tell you everything about a policy decision. But I've seen, you've actually forced us to do this a little bit more. I love what we do now after our board meetings, where in case you missed it, it might be important for us to start thinking about it in case you missed it from a policy and governance standpoint, to hold ourselves accountable for communicating to the public so they can hold us accountable for our own policies.
Yeah, I think that, no, I love that, because it's really the educate part of educate, advocate, act together. And I think we can, in overall communication, we can do a better job, and we got to shift all the time. There's no one perfect communication method, but I think the more that we talk about it, the more that now collective we share out in case you missed it, the more we talk about, hey, did you know, will be very advantageous. That question around, so if you just got here, what we're talking about is policy and governance today. I have on Dr. Phelton Moss, who's one of our newest members to the board, but he's also the policy and governance chair. And we're talking about these different aspects of policy and governance and what that looks like. We've talked about the external facing one. So policy and governance and advocating, right? Educate, advocate, and acting is going out to Annapolis, making sure that we're writing letters and support, making sure we're taking information from our PTAs and PTSOs that's writing to us and engaging. He talked about how do we engage our scholars a little bit more, and that being work that we want to continue to see. So every year we're just building more and more and more inside of our toolkit, and what you'll see is evolving, the evolving nature of things. And for that, we definitely want you all included. So how do you get included? Join your PTA. That's what you do first, is make sure you're a part of your PTA. I remember, and I think you did too, but I remember when I ran for office, and it's still the truth, is that I really ran on a platform of parent engagement. Mm-hmm. And parent engagement as a parent is so important to me. And I'll tell you, the way that I met Sonia Williams, who talked to me about this role when she was ready to retire, is because I was a leader in my PTA. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on, and obviously you have some thoughts on PTA and organizations because we're involving scholars more.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, today I'm not a parent. I hope to be one soon. But I do very much so see the parent work as critical. When I was a school principal, it was the only way that I was able to move my school is by working very closely with parents. It was the only way that, building these strong relationships. And actually, it is a PTA that actually got me also involved in thinking about running for the school board. I met Jay Howard Brock. My church actually supports the PTA at Bradbury Heights. And we had done an incredible amount of work. And I saw the organizing that they were doing just at the parent level. And it made me really ask a lot of questions about our district. And so that's actually where I got my interest, my initial interest, in addition to the folks in my neighborhood. One of the things that I have tried to do, one, particularly because I'm not a parent, is to make sure I engage with our parents and hear from them as I'm making decisions, because I'm not having to get a kid on the bus every morning. So I'm not experiencing some of the things that they're experiencing. And so it's most important for me to really engage our parents. So I have a monthly PTA meeting every fourth Monday, where I am with all of our PTA leaders and receiving feedback from them around our work, giving them updates. That's been really powerful. Just last month, they asked me to put together an advocacy letter that they could send to all of our delegation around how, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this in just a moment, HB 405 and Senate Bill 429 would actually impact Prince George's County Public Schools. And so, I spoke with a principal yesterday at a school who wants to start a PTA. And I'm like, all right, let me get you connected with this group. Give me one parent. And if they get connected to this group, they can feel the love, they can feel the energy, and they would be able to organize it at their school. So I think PTAs are critical. I think we need them at every school. I think they're, someone told me the other day, PTAs are outdated. I actually don't believe that they are. I think they are tried and true model. When we can get folks organized and we get their mission clear, we get the right supports in place, folks like us actually engage them. I think they can be a really great place. We've got several examples of where they are working incredibly well. I mean, your work from PTA led you to the school board. So I do think that they are a critical part of our work. But I say all that to say, we're not at a place where half of our schools in Prince George's County Public Schools have an active PTA. And so I think it's important for us as school board members to really support our schools and helping organize our parents to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that came out as you talk, but first I want to say hey to Candace Perkins, who is here. She is our PTSO leader at Frederick Douglass High School, which is a very active PTSO. And she said that just in case you didn't know, like in case you didn't know or in case you missed it, highlights are very invaluable. And those continue to be appreciated as we do that in the community. So that's something that we can definitely take on and make sure that we are giving to our community. And then the second is the PTA at Bradbury Heights is amazing. She wanted to note as well. And I think that, when you have strong PTAs and PTSOs, then those are the amazing, I want to say, advocates or voice pieces that really tap even deeper into their populations to be able to bring back. So although I get the PTO leaders together, I think that one of the things that I have been really thinking about is I have a District 9 connectors group and really revamping that to include the PTA organizers because they are very invaluable. So I think, from our perspective as well as board members, just creating spaces to be able to share best practices of what we're doing, making sure we're all following each other to see what each other's doing, what's working in different communities, so that then we can leverage those same things to work inside of our own communities, right? I always say it's not really a competition at all. It's really making sure that we're getting all of the information to our constituents.
No, and I think, most of us, side note to that point, the public don't know this, the leader knows that, you might not even remember it, but most of us actually model what we do after what you do. I mean, most of us hit you up and like, how do you do this? I think even before I got on the board, I was like, can you tell me how you do this? And you like, you'll get there. And so I think it is important. I think all of us have to engage our communities in different ways to be able to get there. But I think there's so much learning from one another. I mean, like our newsletter, like everybody's now getting to a place where we have a newsletter that's, side note, sometimes I look at Lolita's before I build mine. I'm like, oh, she's putting dope content. Let me figure out what content I can put in mine. So
use it and figure out what works well for your own constituents. For instance, I subscribe, and I tell District 9 all the time on all of these, subscribe to everybody's newsletter. Make sure you get it, because different things are happening in different communities, and that's how we grow. That's how we do things. That's how we learn things differently. You got to subscribe to everybody's. I get everybody's newsletter. So somebody might be looking on and be like, well, how do I do that? Here you go. It goes to the same place that you can register or subscribe to Dr. Phelton's as well. So you go to bit.ly/district, 9 news, and it literally takes you to, what is it called? School Messenger. And you go through School Messenger, and literally you click, because you have to opt in. We can't add you to our distribution list. Like any distribution list, you have to opt into what that is and sign up for everybody's. And that way you see the different ways that people are communicating. And to Dr. Moss's point, I take a look, for instance, Jonathan Briggs is very data driven in his, and he has some articles sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that would have been good to see. And to be honest, I don't think I've even told Jonathan this. So Jonathan, if you're watching, here you go. And I'll tell you when I see you again. But Mr. Briggs always would put policy information in there, probably because he was the chair before as well. But I think that's just how his mind works. And so what you'll see inside of even my latest newsletters is that I've begun putting in policy and what we're doing. And I think it just expands on exactly what you said. What's working in some other communities? Will that work in mine as well? How can I craft that data? Yeah. Hold on. We have another. Candace said, I agree. I think being consistent across the districts, sharing information across our community helps push our goals as PGCPS stakeholders. Absolutely. I wanted to take a moment to really quickly, as we talk about policy, guys, is share my screen again, because of course I'm going to our newsletter, guys, and you should already be getting this. So we're gonna skate through it pretty quickly. The first you'll read on your own, but this month we do have some scholars some scholars and some employees of PGCPS. I just want to call their names in memory of Ariel, Ariana, Tyler, Shirley, and my grandmother, who also recently passed away. We have the community chat, so you all remember. Oh my goodness, I don't know if you all remember Omari Barnes, but I remember Omari Barnes, and I'm just so excited that he is now Maryland's 2025-2026 state student member of the board. That's such a big deal. So congratulations, Omari. Good job. Our former board member, Dr. Zipporah Miller, this is awesome. She was appointed by the county executive for the Commission for Women. So congratulations. We have some kudos in here, some good stuff coming out for Women's History Month. Frederick Douglass High School, Candace is on right now, but we're super excited. We did do a highlight. Now, people, how do you get highlights? Right? How do we get highlights inside of your newsletter? I get it all the time. Send an email. That's what you do. You send an email and send me some information. And for this, I happened to see Coach Wayne, who is Chloe's dad, the other day when I was out in the community. We were both at a community event. And he said to me, you know that Frederick Douglass is playing tonight, and you know that they're in the championship. And I was like, oh, I didn't. And I happened to be able to move something tonight. And so I went to the game. I got to the game, you guys, and it was a little struggle. I said, now, I don't know who to support. Am I supporting Frederick Douglass or Gwen Park? Because I graduated from Gwen Park. I didn't know they were playing Gwen Park. So I cheered for both. Anyway, Frederick Douglass came out the winner on that one right there, but he sent me some information, and I'm super excited to be able to highlight scholars there. So I'm not going to go through all this because you all have it, but what I did want to get to is the policy and governance piece. We have board business meetings coming up March 27th. So make sure you can give in public comment, make sure you watch, make sure you at least watch the replay. And this is an opportunity to keep an eye out for the agenda and come in person if you so choose. Listen, PGCPS graduation rate has climbed. And Dr. Moss called this out as a kudos in our last, was it our last meeting? Oh no, maybe it was our chair, Brandon, who did that actually. So take a look at the details around that. Look, there's Candace Perkins as we talk right now. There she is. She came to do public comment on behalf of Frederick Douglass, and we are super excited that you and Frederick Douglass PTSO are so involved. Thank you so much. And that's her giving public testimony. It's just a reminder that it makes a difference when you come out and do public testimony. Also, we highlighted Fort Washington Forest Elementary School because they're the only elementary school that actually does the JA Finance Business Park for their fifth graders. And that was just really awesome to see. I'm getting there, y'all. CMIT champions, whoop, whoop. Their basketball team did great too. And yes, I do know that there's tons of winners all over the county, guys. I do, but I can only do so much. And so you send it in, we'll get it in. Morgan State, I graduated from there, but not only am I a graduate and teaching there and going there, they do have April 4th. They do have exploration at Morgan State. So make sure you do that. We got some scholarship information, the Take 9 pledge. We talked about that. Here this is. When you send in questions, where do they go? Right here to answer for you all. So if you've asked questions, then we have the answers right here. So make sure that you do that. We talked about the Department of Education. If it's dissolved, what does that really mean? What does advocacy look like around that? Call your senators, your legislators, your Congress people. We need that now. Here it is. This is what I was getting to, everybody. Let's talk policy and governance. And this was kind of reapplied in part from another board member because I thought that getting policy and governance information was so key. And this just gives you what the agenda is for that. It doesn't mean that our other committees are not important. It's just legislative season. And so this is being put here, but it also talks about what was approved. Okay. These are what was approved. It talks about first reader, second reader. And then it says, what are we going to be talking about for public comment at our next board meeting? These are what we're going to be talking about. So if you want to do public comment, these are the things that you want to take a look at and be able to talk about if policy is really important to you. Revised board policy, we're talking investment, transfer of funds, community involvement in the principal selection process. A number of you all have actually talked about that. So this is a time to click right here and see what the policy says, give your info. Legal age of admission, yearbooks and photographs, order of business parliamentary procedures. And you can also, if you're not able to make it to the policy and governance committee, or you're not able to make it to a board meeting, you can send written testimony. And that's available now too. So I wanted just to be able to show you all those things. And then you can look in the newsletter for other things because it's rather lengthy for you all to be able to look at resources and things like that. All right, let's see what else for advocacy. Our committees are Academic Achievement Committee. We have Policy and Governance Committee. We have OBAFA Committee, which I always get the acronym wrong, but it's around budget and fiscal affairs. There is the Audit Committee. Did I say that already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You didn't say audit, but yeah, you said OBAFA.
Okay. So those are the committees that we have, the standing committees. And then we have a lot of other advisory committees like our PCAC. We have our Disabilities Committee. We have a lot of other committees where volunteers from our community are involved in that. And we do have for our PCAC, actually, we're going to be pushing that out because District 9 seat is open. It's going to be open in the future. We have like 3 or 4 districts that's going to be open. So keep an eye out because those should be coming out pretty soon. And it's an application process. You apply and it's voluntary, but it's amazing work that our PCAC is doing and our DIAB is doing for disabilities. And those are the other ways that you can get involved. So we had a comment. Do we get alerts if the agenda items change for public comment? No. Great question. The agenda could be updated though within 48 hours of the meeting. But on the meeting, now that I'm thinking, if it's, for instance, Policy and Governance Committee changes, there will be nothing that's normally added to it, but Dr. Phelton will say at the beginning, like, hey, this was on the agenda, but due to the fact that we need to do additional work or due to the fact that the governance bill just came out and it's lengthy, we might not talk about this tonight. So we'll move that to the next meeting. Or the chair might say, on board docs, it says we were going to talk about this, but they'll always give rationale as to why.
Yeah, we just generally say it as part of the meeting if something has changed. I don't know that like we change it or we update it online or anything. I think that's worth looking into though, the way in which how we might be able to alert it. I wonder if that might be something that can be added to the tracker. I'll make a note and see. But we do say at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah. But that is true. But I think she's talking more about the board meeting, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. You can write in, Candace, if you're talking about the board meeting. Typically, there's nothing added to it because we do have OMA. So typically we only can talk about what's on the agenda to stay within compliance. If something's not going to be talked about, then that's when it's talked about at the beginning of the meeting. Yeah.
We wouldn't just add anything. We wouldn't just add anything. And if we did in a general board meeting, we would have to add it under new business and vote for it. And so.
She's talking about if people submit written testimony to board meetings, it gets uploaded to board docs. And so I see. So you're saying, for instance, if we say we're going to talk about anything, cell phones, and somebody sends that in, but we don't end up talking about it as a board, that stays on it stays on the uploads for board docs, if that's what you're asking. I think that's what it is. So that comment will still forever be on there, even if for some reason something happened and we don't end up talking about it that day. It is. Oh yeah, there she said yes, that's correct. Okay, perfect. All right. So let's see. We're more than halfway done. And so just want to kind of reloop on what we talked about is let's talk about next week. So we have some advocacy happening. Oh, before we do that, we have some advocacy happening. That's kind of a one-liner. We'll be there on Monday night. Is Strong Schools is having a youth rally where, District 9, let me tell you, I sent a note last night. So this was a tight timeline, guys, working with Strong Schools in order to try to get some folks there. So because of the tight timeline and some other key factors, we did push out, and there was 2 amazing scholars. Let me get their names. I think it was Bright and Sanaya. Actually, I know for sure. Sanaya is our, I think that's the Sanaya that's our poet laureate. And she signs up as well from Frederick Douglass High School. And then Bright from Surrattsville High School signed up. So first, I wanted to thank you so much. I did send you guys an email, a personal email with not only Dr. Moss on copy, but the superintendent, your principals, and forwarded a copy to Frederick Douglass High School PTSO, just to give you guys kudos for wanting to be extreme advocates for our youth, not only your schools and District 9, but for our youth across PGCPS. Because there are 2 amazing scholars for that, it doesn't warrant a huge bus this particular time at the late notice. However, we will ensure that we do something to ensure your voices are absolutely heard, either this session and continuing sessions. As Dr. Moss mentioned, we are doing our best to get more scholars involved, leveraging our PGRAS, leveraging our SGAs, leveraging our student advocates. We have them, and we're working on how do we do a better job. You want to add anything there?
No, I wouldn't. I want to thank the students, though, for signing up. Students all across Maryland are headed to Annapolis on Monday to really advocate for school funding and the protection of school funding. And so I will say this, Board Member Walker and I were very adamant about having supports from students from the southern part of the county as part of the conversation. So we appreciate those students signing up, and we are really pushed to think about moving forward. How do we kind of organize this independently to make sure our students from the southern part of the county are able to go? So I do want to thank those students for signing up. I know Board Member Walker was really excited when we had students who signed up to go. So thank y'all again if you're on. Thanks to the parents for putting them out there. And I think there'll certainly be opportunities for us to engage with young people in the near future.
Absolutely, because we live far. So we live in the southern part. So I appreciate that. And this opportunity is still there. If you want to meet us in Annapolis, or if you want to, there are buses there's a large crowd that's going from 2 schools in, I think it's Northwestern and High Point. that are also going, and I've sent those times. But understandably, if you aren't able to make this one, don't worry. Don't worry. There's plenty of opportunity in the future, and we'll make sure that we try to get that in advance. Also on Wednesday, you want to talk about Wednesday?
Yeah, so Wednesday, we're really excited about our PGCPS Advocacy Day in Annapolis. So while your board members have been there, board member Walker has been in Annapolis more than all of us during this session. So when some of us couldn't go, she would go and testify on bills and whatnot. But one of the things the committee thought was really important was to have a day where we can bring students up so that members of the delegation could hear directly from our students about their experiences in PGCPS. And this year, the committee decided to prioritize school construction. And so we will be in Annapolis with about 40 students and about 5 parents. Those parents should be getting emails today about Wednesday. We finally have a plan. I think we've got 2 parents from Frederick Douglass.
Yep. Candace Perkins and Monica from the PTSO. So that's another way the PTSO shows up. Awesome. I can't wait to see you guys.
Yep. And we've got board member Boozer Strother has some parents coming. I have a couple of parents who are coming who will give some talk time at the event. So it's really exciting. We'll be there talking about why we need to protect funding for school construction. As you know, PGCPS has some of the oldest buildings. While we've done great work to build new campuses, there's still so much work to be done from a school construction standpoint. And what's really exciting is that a number of the students who are coming, I think they're coming from Bowie, and some students are coming from our CTE program, who will be able to talk about school construction, not just from the perspective of we need funding to build our schools, but the way in which investing in school construction can create jobs for them who are learning these skills already from Crosstown High School in our CTE program. So we'll be there from about 8 o'clock to about 1 o'clock Wednesday, really pushing this notion of school construction and how we need more dollars, but also it's an opportunity to invest in the young people that are learning these school construction skills already, or construction skills in general, not just school construction.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well. And so we do know, guys, that there is a deficit in Maryland. We know that. We know that that trickles down to the money that we have in PGCPS, the money for fire, the money for everything that happens inside of our county, inside of Maryland as a whole, and for us, Prince George's County specifically. What we're talking about is the investment in education that is so important for a number of reasons, which you can see across the nation at this particular time. Education is key. And we've got to be in buildings that foster this educational environment in order to not only stay up with technology, but it's more than that. It's like basic needs inside of our classrooms. Some of our classrooms, and I say all the time, it's raining in classrooms. And it's true. In some of our classrooms, we have some of the oldest buildings. And so we want to be able to advocate for that and just to help some of our legislators understand the dire situation that we have here. I think you all saw, at least I posted it inside of our newsletter quite some time ago, but the board last year wrote a letter. It was before you all came on board, but wrote a letter about dollars for our scholars and what that means. Quite frankly, we can go back and take a look at some of those key points. But I do think it's important for us to be able to provide these parents with some talking points. So maybe we can do that quickly between Monday and Tuesday and be able to kind of hand it out on some key points that we will be touching upon. So more to come. And thank you guys for those who are showing up for that one. So that's advocacy. And like I said, educate, advocate, act together. It's more than a slogan. It's a lifestyle. And that's what we're living by on our board as of right now. So today really was about bringing up policy and governance, how you all get involved, meeting Dr. Moss from District 7, but who's our policy and governance committee chair, starting to understand how, again, to get into board docs, how you can look at these newsletters, how you can sign up for multiple people's newsletters. And everybody's newsletter is different, guys. Everybody's not going to do a 40-page newsletter like I do. I know one of the board members one time was like, this is just too much. I can't handle it. And then sometimes I'll look at somebody's, but it's what works for your community. What works for your community? And sometimes you can just scan through. Sometimes you need pictures in order to decide I'm going to stop on this thing right here. So whatever works for you. And of course, I always take you all's input. What's some work that you're doing inside of your district? I think you said some of it. You do your chats, your newsletters.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I do. So I do my monthly Brood Ideas, which is on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. It's virtual, not broadcasted in the way that this one is, but, we bring folks together and, we have real conversation. It's more of a round table where folks are talking on a Zoom to be able to do it. And then the fourth Mondays, I have my PTA leaders who come together from all our PTAs who are really thinking about not just their own individual PTAs, but the way in which they support one another and help foster other ones. We're about to take on a project around community schools that's really focused on how do we build like a little network of like best practices, and this is what's working in our community school program. How might it be able to support yours? One of our the PTA leader, Chris at Benjamin D. Falloy, really wanted to take this on. And so we are working on that. And then the final piece of the work that we're doing is really connected to the community schools work, but we're working with the partnerships office to figure out how do we get more partners. And many of our schools can't figure out how to find partners. And so we're going to be bringing the partnerships office to our next roundtable discussion to be able to talk about that. But we're out trying to engage our parents. I'm doing currently, I am on a schools tour where I'm meeting directly with our principals every Friday. I'm visiting 2 schools this year to try to get to all of our campuses. But yeah, that's the year one work that, we want to be able to do to engage folks in District 7.
Oh, I love that. And one of your constituents, Belinda Lindsay. Hey there, Belinda. She said, keep doing what you do. Thank you.
Oh, how's it going, Professor Lindsay? She's over at the community college. So good to see you on.
Yes, she's in my chapter for AKA as well. So I'm excited because you get to experience both District 7 and District 9, which I absolutely love. And she's such an advocate for connections and connecting across districts. So really do appreciate you and the work that you do. One of the things I think is, and it's so tough, let me tell the folks, is that a lot of board members, we see each other at the board meeting and we talk about board business and then that's it. Because OMA violations say that if we get together and all of us get together, it could be considered a meeting and it's not a public meeting. So we can't all go out together. Okay. So a lot of times this type of experience is good because I'm learning more about Dr. Phelton and the work that he's doing. And we don't have a forum, let's just say, for us to share best practices across. The same thing happens in email to talk about board business. OMA tells us that we're not able to do that because we haven't told the public that we're going to be meeting. And sometimes in emails, that could be a meeting if you're talking about board business, of which we didn't put out in advance. So there is this, I'm going to call it a gap, or there's this gap that we need to figure out how to fill in small spaces. And maybe I'm just thinking out loud, but maybe it's the North, the Mid, and the South to get together with those groups to find out kind of what are those groups doing. And we can kind of figure out what the right way to tackle that is so that we can stay in small groups and not violate OMA. But at the same time, this is great. Something that you said about meeting with your PTSO leaders. I know that Dr. Kenneth Harris was doing that as well. And it's something that's continuing in District 7, which is great. And I know Dolores Millhouse and Kenneth kind of partnered on getting that thing set up there. But I think that that's a marvelous idea. And that's something that I'm going to really consider doing with my District 9 connectors and adding them to it. Yeah. And I think it's great.
If you think about the work of Miss Millhouse has done this work for a long time. So one of the things that, when I stepped into the role, they immediately added me to the group me, where all of these folks have been, I think they had started trying to organize them to take on a task. So the first level of work was, let's just get people together. We've not been able to get these people together. So, Board Member Harris did that in October, got them together and got them in one venue and started talking, which I mean was huge to be able to do, to be able to get folks together otherwise. And so this next level of work, as I share with our policy and governance work, I very much see our work as building on one another. And so this next body of work is to find things that we can work on together, but also invite other folks to the table and make sure every school has a PTO, PTSA. I mean, it's good. I mean, I think we benefit in District 7 from having the wisdom of Ms. Millhouse, who's been around for a while doing advocacy work. When there are moments that I can't support PTA leaders, she can. I'll give you a good example, and I won't belabor this, but you know, I had lots of questions about the budget, and Ms. Millhouse was like, "Oh, go back and look at our budget from this year." And because of her wisdom, you know, we've been able to use that as a board to think about how do we set budgets up for future years. And so I think there's a lot of value in being able to bring those folks together. It's been helpful for me. It helps me ask the right questions at board meeting. I get context that I otherwise wouldn't have. So yeah, super excited to have them together.
Yeah. And you know, this has evolved too. My community chats have evolved over time. When I started, it wasn't being broadcast. Actually, we did it. I've always been virtual, but we would do it via Zoom. And so those who would join via Zoom, we would have this discussion, we would chat. I would bring in people from time to time from the administration based on whoever asked me a question, if it was a hot topic on security or community schools or something like that. And I didn't record it because I felt like there was a lot of discussions back then about people's individual scholars. Like, hey, and I just felt like that was very personal. I didn't want to record it. I didn't want to blast it out. But I'll tell you what shifted me. And this was a year and a half later. Fentanyl hit really hard in the area at one time. Mm-hmm. And we were having a lot of fentanyl discussions in a community. And I had, on that particular community chat, I had an anesthesiologist on, and they were talking to us about what fentanyl really does to your body and how it's being chopped up and how these kids are using it. And I remember somebody asking me, "Oh my gosh, is this recorded? Because I want to take it to my PTSO." And I was like, "No, it's not." And the way that the conversation happened was so good. I mean, Dr. Justin Black is the truth. And we graduated from Morgan together, but he couldn't do it the same anymore. Like, you can't recreate that type of juicy conversation that happened there. And I wished I had recorded it. So the next time I talked to my group who decided to come on, and I was like, "Hey, you guys, I'm really thinking about recording it and pushing it." And they were like, "Oh yeah." But I'll tell you the conversations that don't happen anymore. So there's no right or wrong answer. We don't have those personal conversations anymore because it is, I'm sure it's because it is pushed out. So those happen to me differently. So my point of telling you that is that it evolves over time. Gotcha. Mine has evolved over time.
Yeah, I look at yours and I'm like, now how do we get to this place where it's a YouTube? Like, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna try to get there today. I'll get there. I'll get there in year 4, maybe. But yeah. I know I appreciate the platform, and it actually got an idea from you. Our next one coming up, I'm inviting, as I just shared with you, I'm inviting the partnerships office that will be able to be part of it. That might be one that you know, we can record. I should probably talk to you about maybe doing it jointly where you can show it.
Oh yeah, because Candace actually, look, she just wrote and said the community partnership sponsorships to help do more as a PTSO would be helpful. It's good stuff. Yeah. We just don't really know what's happening in everybody's silos. Yeah, because we're going fast. We can talk about it. As we wrap up right now, you guys, I wanted to say thank you. If you have any additional comments, please write them in so that we can address it before we leave. I also wanted to share. Oh, she said, yes, please share. Absolutely.
I want to say one thing before we go to this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I just want, board member Walker talked a little bit about like collegiality just a few minutes ago. I think it's always important for us to continue to talk about how we're supporting one another as a board. You know, I'll do this in other platforms too, but I certainly want to give board member Walker her flowers while we're on her venue. She has really mentored all the board members. Board member Boys McCants and I were actually talking yesterday on the phone after she reached out to ask us to be involved in something. And so I just really want to personally thank you. We've been new, but you didn't say I've been old, I've been here, or I didn't know y'all before you got here. Every step of the way, you've certainly been supportive of our work and supporting us. You were the one board member who came when we got installed, when we got sworn in, you were there. and there's nothing we can't, reach out to you and you don't help us with. So I just want to give you the flowers while I'm on your platform.
No, thanks. That's so funny that
and supporting us. And
thank you. That's funny that you say that, because how I was going to end was about September 27th. That's great. Let me say this. Casey Shields, hey, she said, thanks for these discussions. Absolutely. I'm a parent, guys, right? So I didn't know. I'll tell you, even as the PTA leader, one of the leaders on the PTA for Accokeek Academy, I didn't really even understand the link to the Board of Education. I'll be serious. I really didn't. So when Sonia what happened was, and I tell this story all the time, just real quick, what had happened was boundaries was a discussion, and people were up in arms because Accokeek Academy was overcrowded. It's a tag school, so multiple people were coming. We didn't have Colin Powell first, and Colin Powell was about to be built, and these boundaries were coming, and people were going to be now the middle school. Everybody from District 8 was coming to this middle school on pieces of District 8 was coming to District 9 school because there wasn't one. And now there was one that was going to be built. So those people in that area, in that boundary, were going to go to this school. And I was on a PTA, and I'm like, I don't even know the answer. Who can I talk to? And that's how I became the legislative chairperson for the PTA. I tell you, if you ask a question, you're going to be in charge. So, right. So somebody said, oh, call your school board member. And I was like, okay. And that's how I met Sonia Williams. And I tell you, she was at every PTA meeting after that. I was like, you got to come talk to the people because they're going crazy. And that's how I started learning more and more about it. And I think I'm telling you all this because involvement looks different at all levels. And I reached out to the Frederick Douglass PTSO because they're active, and I know that, one, they're going to hold me accountable. Two, I can reach out and they'll answer. And I have some other PTAs like that, but this is what happens. So Belinda, who's on here today, Belinda Lindsay, she is in my AKA chapter in District 9. She's the connections chair. She is, not only do I know her in District 9 and in a sorority where we're doing work, but she also is in Dr. Phelton's District 7. And so she's really keen on what's happening, and it's a passion point. Mm-hmm. So as we started talking about I have these parent community summits, and my 10th one, 10th one is coming up. I'm like, what are we going to do? We got to do something big. Well, Belinda happened to come to me and say, hey, we want to do this resource fair, and you tapped into schools. What could we do? I'm like, oh my gosh, guess what we could do? K through 12 resource fair. And we just started kind of talking about it. So the September 27th at Accokeek Academy is going to be a K through 12 resource fair. It's going to look a lot like my other community parent summits, but the juiciness of it all, you guys, is that District 7 and District 8, it's going to be a South 7, 8, and 9 collaboration. And it's going to be very good. We'll talk about maybe the top 3 things that parents want to know. We'll reach out to you guys and ask you for, what are some things that you really want to talk about, have some experts there, and really have resources, academics, tutoring, mental health, security. We'll see who's going to be there based on what the needs are of our community, but I'm really excited about it. And that's the type of partnerships that we want to really see happen. And we're partnering, of course, with Alpha Alpha Sigma Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, because they have connections. They're District 9. They pride themselves as being the chapter of District 9. So listen, I said, well, I got to be a part of that one, because you can't say you District 9 and I'm not involved some type of way. So here we are. I thought that was a pretty cool story. Okay. All right, guys. Well, it's 8:58. Did you have any lasting comments, Dr. Moss?
No, I think you were going to talk about your event.
That is it.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I got you.
Oh, the one that I'm having. Oh, I have a lot of events coming up, you guys, but that one is the joint one. I'm doing my 5th grade Day in the Courts, which I always do. 5th grade Day in the Courts. That's happening in May. Oh my goodness. Guess what else we're doing this time? I haven't even told you guys. I'm big on transitional grades. So 5th grade is the last year of elementary school before you go to 6th grade and middle school. That's a big transitional year. That's why I do the Day in the Courts with the 5th graders, because it's all about decision making, get your mind right. And I choose a school. And then the 8th graders is before they go, it's their last year of middle school and before they go to high school. So I went one day. This is how I started. This is why I'm doing it this year. I went one day to this day in the courts. They don't call it that, but something was at the courthouse and it was on my agenda. And I actually had some time that day. So I went. And it was probably one of the coolest things I've seen in PGCPS. It was a mock trial. And there were some scholars who were dressed in the orange jumpsuits. There were some scholars who were acting like the defense attorneys. There were some scholars who were in a car and they got pulled over. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And it was just so interesting to hear the conversations that were happening. But again, board members get together, do our work, and go. And so that I thought was pretty cool. And so I want to do a truncated piece of that. And we've already gotten with, I feel like it's Gwen Park Middle School, who we are going to do a mock day and still come together. So I'm excited about that. All right. So here is Candace Perkins as her last comment is the Frederick Douglass High School would love to help with a book bag supply giveaway at the 9/27 event. Oh, nice. If possible, maybe all the, listen, Candace, great minds think alike. I just wrote to Dr. Moss and Zakia Goins McCants the other day, because one of the things that I'd like to do is get all of the PTA, PTSO organizations together so you all can get signups that day as well. It's a lot of you all, so we have to figure out what that looks like for spacing, but look at that. So you said, well, book bag supply giveaway, we're excited. If possible, maybe all the, can partner with it. Look at that. I like that idea. All right, we'll write that down. Nice. That's a good one. I know.
And my church does a book bag giveaway too. So we should probably just merge it all together. We have a bunch of book bags.
Let's do it. I know. So let's do it. Now, before you all reach out, and it's 9:01, so we're about to get off. But before you guys reach out to Dr. Phelton and I about if your business can be a vendor at this amazing event, because I get it all the time. I want to let you know this. You must be a PGCPS vendor in order to be at these events. Okay, that's number one. If you're not, it's so easy to do. Go to pgcps.org and sign up to be a vendor. Okay, that's the first thing. The second piece is that for me, I don't know about how Dr. Moss will do this in the future. For me, I typically only have vendors that are aligned with whatever it is I'm doing at the time. So I wouldn't have my neighbor's amazing bakery at that one per se. It's not that it's not amazing and I don't want her to get sales, but it wouldn't be that. And oftentimes I don't have anything that's for sale at my community events. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things I will do before my first term ends is within the 4 years is I do want to have and maybe we can do this collectively in the South too, is have a vendor day of PGCPS vendors and small businesses, because I do think that's important. And we might even be able to also partner with not only us, but our council members too, inside of these 3 areas, because I think that could be really, really big. And love it. All right, guys, we had brainstorms for days. Just got to figure out how we put it all together.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this.
Yay. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Hold on, Dr. Moss. Oh, okay. Enjoy. In stream. Okay.